It's day 441. It's also July 20th, 2020, and we are in Spencer, Idaho. You ever wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what am I doing? And more importantly, why? Yeah, me too. Hi, my name's Craig, and this is my story. A story about life out there. For visuals while listening, search Life Out There on your favorite social media platform or use the links in the podcast description. Now, I don't know a lot, but one thing I can tell you for certain is that if you are in northwestern Wyoming and you find yourself in a Montana sort of mood, with no desire to experience any of the Yellowstone crowds, you're gonna see a bit of Idaho, just like we did, in the form of Victor and Driggs. And we called it a night in a place called Spencer. I can also report that this country of ours pays little to no attention to the lines we put on a map to differentiate one state from another. Conquering Teton Pass with its 10% grades and rolling down into the Teton Valley, one would have no idea that you had just left Wyoming and entered Idaho, except for that sign we passed, telling us we'd done just that. The rugged wilderness and high country of the Tetons blend as seamlessly into the ranch and farmlands of Idaho as they had back there in Wyoming. The snow fences and sun-baked mud on the two tracks look exactly the same, indicating that the seasons, they pay little attention to the map in these parts as well. But the one thing that does continue to shift as we move northwest are the temperatures. Long behind us are the near triple-digit days offered by the high country in Colorado and Utah, replaced with mornings that tempt one to don a hoodie for that first walk of the day on another sub-50-degree morning. And there is relief knowing that the sun will ease up on us at around 80 degrees. And summertime temps like these, well, they help the curious sort, like me, understand why so many folks might be up to endure the long cold winters here, when they have this to look forward to. And all of this against the backdrop of these wide-open Midwestern plains, framed by those mountains. It feels like a place where, if you decided that you wanted to spend a day, or even a month somewhere, and not run into critters of the two-legged sort, I get the feeling you actually can. Spencer was one of those exits off the freeway that states, no services. And I might challenge that statement a little, given that I saw two separate signs offering to take us mining for opals. After all, Spencer is the self-proclaimed opal capital of America, and is home to the state's largest opal mine. And in non-pandemic times, you can even find a cafe if you're hungry, complete with a shop, opal products of all kinds from that nearby mine. For a town with a population of 37, you couldn't ask for much more, could you? And we couldn't have asked for a better night alongside the railroad tracks backed up against a snow fence, where Billie and Dougie hunted the tall grasses for creatures big and small. As usual, they harvested nothing from their hunt except fun, sometimes even in the form of each other. And asking the internet about a place called Spencer, well, it's a pretty short read. It was interesting that it started out with, quote, Spencer is a small unincorporated hamlet located in Clark County, close quote. Hamlet? I asked myself. In all the places we've been, I haven't read of a town or a place being referred to as a hamlet. And further reading would simply state that the term, more officially used throughout Europe, specifically the UK, where, based on population, hamlet is an official title or designation, much like we use the terms town and city. In the U.S., usage of the term hamlet is less frequent, and more based on local tradition. It sounded sort of like what we had experienced back there in Louisiana and Mississippi, where we saw the term parish being used as opposed to county. Anywho, and sitting just outside the hamlet of Spencer, we'd learned that the area was named for a guy named Hiram Spencer, a merchant from Ogden, Utah, and apparently a successful one. He had business dealings in the area, so he built himself a summer home right here in the late 1800s. A small community would begin to form around Hiram's summer home, really taking shape in 1879 when the Utah and Northern Railroad arrived. But it doesn't sound like much else happened around here until 1948, when a couple of deer hunters stumbled across some opals in the area, and that discovery led to the establishment of the Spencer Opal Mine, which is now the largest privately owned gemstone producer in the state, also leading to that term, the opal capital of America. In reading this, I was curious where else in the country are opals mined, and it looks like this area pretty much has a lock on opal production in the U.S. Between here and a region in Nevada, you'll find the majority of opal mining activity for the country. And globally, well, it looks like Australia tops that list. The Spencer mine produces a variety of opals, including precious white and pink opals, as well as common opals. It's located just outside the hamlet, but the mine trucks in opals in their raw form, so enthusiasts that want to pick through and mine for themselves their very own one-of-a-kind opal, they can. For those in search of a more finished piece of jewelry, the site is complete with that gift shop and cafe. And I pretty much thought that was it. For opals, anyway. Jewelry, ornamental inlays and stuff. But it turns out that opals are heavily studied by geologists and mineralogists to understand the conditions under which they form. Their unique structure and composition provide valuable scientific insights into the geological processes, the ones that have taken place over time, and the ones that are still taking place today. Opals. More than just a mood ring, I guess. And sitting here for the evening, taking in the wide openness of it all, I'm having the same curiosities I most always do. What's life like for folks out this way? It looks like the 37 folks that call Spencer home, well, they do some driving when it's time to grocery shop. Not too bad, though. Around 45 miles south gets them to 50,000 or so folks that call Twin Falls, Idaho home. It's kind of cool, I think, that folks here in Spencer get to choose when, or even maybe, if they even want to deal with 50,000 humans all in one place. I'm guessing most of the time they're pretty content to hang around here and watch it all pass by on that freeway each day. And then snapping photos of that snow fence and yet another decrepit, long since abandoned barbed wire fence. I found myself remembering all the fences, just like this one, we'd seen and taken photos of all across the country. I think maybe even subconsciously, I'm drawn to these places. Places where man worked so hard, left his mark, but then just left. Remnants of a life lived here. Decisions made. Efforts expended. But then forsaken. I mean, why build a fence at all, if only to let time and neglect reclaim it? And of course I kept on reading. Beyond that, where did the very idea of fences even begin? At what point in history did we decide to carve lines into the land? Not with ink or stone tablets, but with timber and rock. It's an invention nearly as old as civilization itself. Fences. Why did we build them? And what have they come to mean? I think about this place in Spencer. Or our time on that bluff in Daniel, Wyoming, overlooking the Green River, surrounded by nothing but space and sky. And I imagine early man standing in that very spot, gripped by the sudden need to fence it all in. Not necessarily as a barrier, but as a declaration. This is mine, a claim, a boundary drawn against the unknown. And that very same story would unfold across time and continents, whether through wooden stakes, woven vines, or stacked stones. The intent remained: keep the wild at bay, establish ownership, mark the beginning of property, territory. And with that, the world shifted. Civilization took root, one fence at a time. And over the years, fences evolved, from those crude wooden posts to intricate ironwork, from dry stacked stone to endless strands of barbed wire. They became more than just dividers of land. They became artifacts of culture, silent storytellers of long-forgotten eras. Here in America, as settlers pushed westward, so did their fences, stitching together a patchwork of dreams, struggles, and ambitions across a raw and untamed landscape. Fences, well, they kept livestock in, carved out homesteads, marked the borders of belonging. They shaped communities, delineating what's ours and what was theirs. But with every fence built, lingering questions remain for me. Do fences provide security, or do they reveal our deepest fears? Looking again at this abandoned fence here in Spencer, rusting iron, collapsing timber, relics left to battle the wind and time. Once it stood for something, but now, whatever it protected is gone. And I wonder, did it ever really need protecting? We've seen 'em, stared at 'em, captured 'em in photographs from coast to coast. Fences left to be swallowed by time. Forgotten markers of forgotten intentions. And within each skeleton of wood and wire, there's a story, I think. A chapter in the long narrative of progress, change, and dreams deferred. They crumble, but they persist, long after their builders have vanished. And I wonder how much longer before this fence, too, is erased, before nature reclaims every trace and a new story begins. Or maybe, then I thought, that new story is already old. I thought about fences today, and what do they really mean? Are they still necessary boundaries? Or have they transformed into something else, more invisible, more insidious even? In a digital age, the fences we navigate aren't built from wood and wire, but from code and control. The internet, an endless stretch of fences. Some mark what's free for the taking. Others demand payment to pass. All on a toll road of information. Pay to enter. Pay to keep your privacy. Pay to opt out of being watched. But are we ever truly protected? Seems no matter how many fences you build around your personal information, the internet still seems to know exactly who you should be friends with. A list of recommendations, oddly similar to the people in your contact list. A coincidence? Not likely. More fences, more boundaries. But do they keep us in, or keep something else out? Fences. Like everything else, I suppose they have their time and place, born from necessity, but also from fear. They offer order and safety, yet they confine. And maybe, as the world shifts and changes, the most important fences aren't the ones we build, but the ones we choose to tear down. like this one in Spencer. Someone abandoned it, left it behind, and maybe that was the real act of progress. And then there's music. There's always music, isn't there? So it makes sense that even fences would find their way into song. Not just as physical barriers, but as metaphors for the walls we build within ourselves. Bing Crosby longed for freedom when he sang, "Don't fence me in." Paramore's fences wrestled with personal boundaries and emotional walls, what to let in and what to keep out. And Brother Ali's picket fence tore into the pressures of keeping up appearances, the expectations that society places on us. And then, of course, no fences. Garth Brooks declared it outright in 1990. No fences. An album filled with songs of breaking barriers, defying limits. Friends in Low Places, The Thunder Rolls, Unanswered Prayers. He made it clear. No fences. Well, that meant something bigger than land and property lines. I think maybe that's sort of where I land, too. Not with the fences, but with the spaces between them. For us, I guess it means exactly what it does right now, here in Spencer, Idaho, as it has all across the country. Each time we sit in the center of what looks like so little, but a quick shift in perspective and view, and I realize there's so much more. And there's so much more waiting for us. And not just what's all around us right here, but what's waiting for us just over that horizon. And I'm always wondering, what are we going to learn there? Turns out, this thing called life comes with a lot of rules. Maybe it's time to break a few. Because you can. No, seriously. You can.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.